You are listening to The Plot with a Twist, a Burning Hallows production. We are your bookish hosts, Ro
and Aurora.
If you like what you hear, please like, share, subscribe, and give us a quick review on your podcast app. It helps us become more visible to other bibliomaniacs. We publish bookish episodes each week on Wednesdays, so be sure to stay tuned for discussions and attitudes that are lit.
Within the literary world, especially within the romance genre, we have many main male characters that we truly love and adore. We talk about these men like they're real. But what about female main characters? The FMCs that are so badass, we wish we could be just like them. In some cases, these characters leave us wanting to pick up a sword or fight in a rebellion. Not only do we have FMCs that are outwardly strong, we also have those that have a quiet resilience who, while not overly powerful, still manage to control the story and narrative. The sassy, smart, brilliant, and brave. Those FMCs that inspire us and embody true feminine strength, courage, and tenacity. Today, we pay tribute to our female main characters. Yeah.
Ooh.
FMCs, we give them a lot of shit sometimes. Like
when you suggested this, I was like, no, we probably should, because we do give them some shit.
Well, I think as women, we're more focused on the men in the books.
Well, yes.
Yeah, as straight women, I would say, or
true.
So we're more focused on finding those MMCs that we want to eat with a spoon. Sometimes overlooking the FMC.
I think it depends on the FMC itself, like themselves. I think the problem is that we've got so many of our own idiosyncrasies and you know, likes and dislikes and things like that, that sometimes we tend to go, oh, I wouldn't do that. Oh, I wouldn't have done it that way. I wouldn't have said this. Or,
well, that leads us to our first point, is what makes a great FMC.
I feel it's the strength that they bring to the book. Now, whether that be, you know, a leader of a rebellion, a princess, a queen, or even just like I've read some books where they're sex workers. I think it depends on what strength, what characteristics that they bring to the book is what makes it, like, if their narrative fits the storyline, then that's what makes it.
Yeah, for me, it's powerful feminism that doesn't border on toxic, because I've seen feminism go way out of control. I also love it when we aren't told repeatedly how badass an FMC is. She just is badass.
Just is badass.
You know what I mean? Through action.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think the stakes that are placed for the FMC to overcome, and how the arcs, for lack of a better word, how her character arc develops, I think is really important too.
Well, yeah, you can't have an FMC who's strong at the start and then kind of loses her bundle towards the end, or vice versa. Or, I know we say it a lot, but, you know, the chosen one. We kind of get over those pretty quickly. But again, though, if it works for the story and it works for her character arc, then that's what makes it. And I think the FMC also has to have a little bit of, because we all have similar traits, right? We all have, when I say similar traits, I mean things like we all have either sayings or words or places or feelings that we go, yeah, I felt that before. Collectively, women have felt those same feelings. So when she's being persecuted, you can go, yep, been there.
Yeah. I would summarize that as human experience.
Yes, but more specifically, the female experience.
Well, yes, correct.
All right. Well, how does a well-written FMC impact the story?
So I would say a well-written FMC inspires female readers and challenges male readers.
So I've got here, I'm like, they bring balance. A lot of the female characters bring a balance, or they're the offset of whether it be the MMC or even another female character. They balance things out. You know, they're one side of the coin. They're either the grumpy to his sunshine or the sunshine to his grumpy. Like they sort of mellow out and balance out, I suppose, the story structure.
I think a well-written FMC also impacts a story in that she challenges the societal norms of what a woman should be according
Get
to
out of my head.
According to the setting, the time, the place of the novel, the plot, essentially. So I think
We
that
have
works.
a hive mind, I've decided.
I know.
That was my next point. Yeah, exactly. I've also got that usually they're like the center or the nexus of a story, depending on what you write. Well, not even depending on what you're writing, but they're usually at the center. They're usually this, and I suppose it comes back to, you know, feminism and a woman's role, but they're usually that nexus, that center or focal point for the story to go around. If you've got your FMC who's, you know, part of the main story arc, she's usually that center point, that one where everything comes back to.
Yeah. And to expand upon what you've just said, a well-written FMC also makes the MMC work for his place in the story or the society in the plot in general to challenge their previously conceived notions of woman.
Yes, exactly. So while she is the nexus or the center point, she's not necessarily the mum or the caregiver, so to speak. And I think that's important.
Or I've read books where she's a world famous pop star, but really she doesn't want anything to do with fame. Do you know what I mean? So I think,
or she's the leader of a rebellion and really doesn't want to be one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a special combination that works between an FMC and an MMC?
I'm going to go with yes and no. So I think you can get them all working together depending on what you're looking for in the story. But you know what I read, right? So I absolutely love a badass FMC.
Yeah, I think it works best when they challenge each other.
Yes.
And in saying that, I also mean when one of them doesn't have power over that isn't willingly given.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, like, that makes sense.
Like I know there's bully romances, but even with that, there is usually a willingness from the female.
Yeah. To concede that control.
Right. Correct.
Yeah. I read a lot of dark romance or mafia romance. So, and I absolutely love the ones where she's just as badass as he is. She's just as unhinged. She's just as chaotic. She's just as psycho. I love those ones because I'm like, yes. And I suppose it goes back to reading like my Nana's, you know, those books with Fabio on the cover. Yes. But she was always the damsel in distress, right? Fabio had to come and save her because she needed to be saved. The Scottish rogue was coming to help. I now love the ones where she's like, fuck off. I don't need your help. What do you mean? Go away. I can do this myself, thanks.
Yeah.
And he's like, let me just help you. And she's like, no, go away.
No, because you'll probably fuck shit up.
Yeah, because you'll screw it up. Oh, now look what you've done. I love that. For me, they're my favorite ones. I also like, and depending on, it doesn't matter who it is, but I also very much do like where you've got a strong silent type and an outspoken one. Doesn't matter which one it is, but I love the juxtaposition between the both of them. But if you write them both well, then any combination will work. But those two are my ones that I think, without fail, they nail it every time.
All right.
Is there something that draws you to an FMC?
Personally, I find myself drawn to an FMC I can identify with. And I think this is true for a lot of female readers. We want to see ourselves in the characters we read, especially if it's a quality we either pride ourselves on or something we have struggled with a lot in life that we've had to endure or overcome. And this goes for the story itself as well as the individual character's backstory.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. Like we do need a connection to the character that we're reading. For me, again, everyone knows I love a badass. I love a bitch. Give me a bitch any day of the week. But I also like consistency. For me, she's got to be consistent. If she starts out strong, depending on what she goes through throughout the book, I don't want... Do you know what it reminds me of? This is going to sound really stupid. Have you seen Wreck-It Ralph 2?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, quite literally, there's a scene in there where... Have you seen Wreck-It Ralph?
Yes, a long time ago.
Okay, so... All right, so you know the little... Oh, what's her name? Starts with a V. Anyway, she's quite literally... She ends up going onto the internet in Wreck-It Ralph 2, right? Because Ralph breaks her game. Anyway, she ends up meeting all the princesses, and they're all like, have you been kidnapped, enslaved? You think about what all the princesses have gone through. And she's like standing there going, are you guys okay? Should I call someone? It reminds me of that. I don't want her to be this character that is quite strong at the start, and then all of a sudden the man comes in to save her, and she's all like, okay, yeah, I don't need to do anything now. I'm kind of like...
Yeah, that's where it falls flat a lot of times.
That's where it does fall flat a lot of the times. Like I tried to, when I wrote this, I tried to stay away from all negative
criticisms.
All negative criticisms because we want to talk up FMCs. But for me, I need consistency and this comes back to my age, but I need brains.
I think, too, one of the arguments about a female main character changing so drastically once she's fallen in love is that love changes you. Yes.
But no.
Yeah.
But, well, and see, here's the thing. And you know that I'm bad for this. You know, because I will read a character and I will be like, oh, my God, why are you so dumb? And you're like, because she's 19.
Yes, I have to remind you.
You're constantly, because she's 19, what were you like at 19? And I'm like, it doesn't matter, I'm not 19 anymore, and this chick's killing my life. And you're like, she's 19. Or you refer it back to my eldest daughter. And I'm like, yeah, okay. All right.
WWLD.
Yeah. They make something dumb. That would be the decision she would make. Something dumb. But I've got to remember that a lot of the times because, yes, I am 41, nearly 42. And we as older readers, and I think we all need to remember that, we have life experience. We have been through many trials, tribulations. We've had ups and downs through our life. So we've learned those coping mechanisms or those strategies or even understanding the situation and being able to read a situation better now. So kudos to the writers for writing 19-year-olds correctly.
Yes.
It's just old fuddy-duddies like me that are like, oh, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Where's your mum? Go and ask her.
I agree. Okay, so a lot of FMCs have a harsh backstory. Why do you think that is?
I've got here that I think it's about overcoming adversity. And I think that is something that is ingrained in the female psyche. We as females have spent centuries, being told what to do, what to wear, what to say, how to act. We've been through so many, I suppose, I'm trying to look for a better word. We've been through so many, it wasn't even until the 60s where women could own their own land. It's as recently as 1960s that, we were still being told, well, no, you can't have a job. I don't know if you do want a job, it's a nurse or a teacher. Or a nanny or something like that, you can't shoot for the stars. So I think that a lot of the time when authors write these female characters, they pull on, and this is just a personal opinion of mine, but I 100% believe that for hundreds of years, it's now ingrained in us. My daughters and my daughter's daughters, if they have daughters, will still feel that oppression.
I'm going to expand on what you're saying because, so one, I think to make the character compelling and four-dimensional, but also a thing to expose the struggles that women go through or have been through, whether internal or external, whether it's in relationships, society at large, and to teach what exists for women as obstacles. So, for example, the rampant occurrence of SA or bringing to light something that's often considered taboo, like ableism and chronic illness and things like that. Because while males can experience that too, the rate at which females experience SA, for example, is astronomical compared to males.
Exactly.
I think it's like 1 in 4. Yeah. I also had a lot of writers that exist currently, a lot of authors that exist currently are from Gen X the millennial generation and even the baby boomers, right? So writers are taught first and foremost to write what you know. So I think it speaks volumes about female authors themselves or how male authors have experienced women in their lives. So, for example, Gen X and elder millennials, especially the elder millennials that had Gen X older siblings, most of us raised ourselves because our parents were too busy with work, school, or whatever else they were doing. And I also believe like the rate of divorce that climbed in those generations plays into this as well. Because like, if you look at historical romance novels, it's usually the FMC fighting against having to marry or fighting against an arranged marriage in favor for a love marriage. Whereas modern FMCs are often overcoming the trauma of parents who either stayed married and didn't want to stay married or went through a messy divorce or never got married or so you see those things in different genres, which I find pretty fascinating.
Well, yeah, because as I said, it's something that's universally understood by all of us. We all understand those. And you're right. Like I remember being at home by myself at like my second eldest age. Like I've got a 12-year-old, and the thought of me leaving her home to look after her younger brother and sister, I'm like, hell no, that's always going to end in disaster. But I did that as a kid.
We all did.
Yeah.
We didn't have a choice.
We were looking after younger siblings and stuff like that and going, okay, well, yeah, we have to. And, you know, I mean, I may have beaten the crap out of my little brother while I was at it, but he deserved it. But you know what? But that's what I mean. As an older, I'll 100% say we're Zennials. But in saying that, yeah, it's the collective experience from those writers that we understand. And I think the fact that as a female sex, we've had to overcome so much. We know and feel that. And it's very empowering when you read a story about, even as a teenager, so even if it's a YA book, reading a story about a girl overcoming adversity is just so empowering for women, for young girls that are, you know, embarking on their reading journeys. It's just something that we can all relate to because you're like, yeah, that's amazing. I'd love that to be me.
Yeah, I agree.
With our FMCs that show that quiet resilience, what makes them so special?
What makes them special to me is that they don't complain, they don't play victim, and they don't try to play superhero. Instead, they turn their pain into power and show how you can be strong and resilient and overcome demons, even if nobody's watching, noticing, or giving you an attaboy.
An attaboy.
Yeah, no,
True.
seriously.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yes, they're the ones that are always strong regardless. So it doesn't matter what they go through or what they've got to do. And they're usually the ones that make the big sacrifice. I went through a stage probably a couple of years ago where all the FMCs was starting to really irritate me. I was getting really, really annoyed. And then I read a book. It was a monster book. Shut up, you. But it was an arranged marriage. She had to go and marry a Minotaur, and she was flat out against it. She was like, no, because they raid our village, they do this, they do that, blah, blah, blah. Her dad was a piece of crap. So she was hell-bent on fighting him. She walked into his throne room and quite literally had a go at him. And then he was like, well, too bad. You don't have a choice. But it was then later on when she met her people that they were like, thank you so much for trying to bring peace. And that she kind of went, I have to do this. I have to do this. I have to make that sacrifice for my people. And she went into this other kingdom. And not that she kept her head down and was scared or anything like that, but she was quiet in the way she worked. She studied and watched their mannerisms, learnt their culture, and then managed to integrate herself into that society. And I was like, that's a really well-written FMC who showed a special quality that you can still get things done even if you don't wield a sword.
Basically, you can do hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to wield a sword to be a great leader or a compassionate person or have understanding or be amazing. You can still be something spectacular while keeping yourself true.
All right. So, what authors write great FMCs? Do you want to go one for one?
We'll go one for one.
All right. You start us off.
All right. So I have Regine Abel.
Okay.
So again, the monster romance.
You and your tentacles. Oh,
they've got tentacles and tails and everything. It's amazing. You'd love it. She wouldn't. You won't. But in saying that, though, she does a very good, quiet, strong FMC. None of the FMCs in her mating agency series are they're strong, but they're not, wield a sword or anything like that. Most of them, some of them are farm girls. Some of them are religious daughters. She's amazing. She writes a great, quiet, strong FMC.
Okay. First one on my list, I'm going to go Julia Quinn. If you've read the Bridgerton series,
true.
All of those girls are spectacularly strong for the historical romance period in which they exist in one way or another.
I did have one of my favorite authors, which is Jane Austen, because of that.
There you go.
Again, strong and quiet, but for the era that they were in, they were some fantastic FMCs.
Okay, then I had Suzanne Collins.
Yeah, she's my next. I'll scratch that off my list.
Yeah, absolutely. Just amazing.
And
FMCs.
She writes some really great just female characters in general, I think.
Yeah.
If you've read...
she's a masterclass in characters, period. But since we're talking FMCs, I put her on the list.
I have Rebecca Yarros, my next one.
Yeah.
I think she does very well with her FMCs as well. Not just Violet.
Yeah, I did not have her on my list simply because I have not read anything but the Empyrean series by her. I've
read a couple and they're quite good. She does well.
Very good. Very cool. Next, I have Alex E. Harrow. Alex E. Harrow is one of my writing idols. So she wrote Once and Future Witches, The 10,000 Doors of January, The Starling House, and she has a new book coming out soon. But she writes the best FMCs, the best.
No. My next one is TJ Maguire. So I recently started reading her. She does a Mafia series. Top notch. If you're looking for a badass FMC, her Bradford series, amazing. Absolutely. They're amazing.
The next one I have on my list is Trisha Wolfe.
Nice.
So she did the Darkly Madly duet.
Yep.
And she has the Hollows Row series as well, which is the FMC is amazing in that as well. So she's definitely on my list.
My next one is Lauren Beale. And that is because she writes some complex FMCs. And when I say complex, they're not your usual, when we say we talk about quiet and shy and, the quiet and strong type and everything like that. She's got a few that are quite strong outwardly, but she writes a brilliant Flawed FMC. So there's a couple of her Hitchhiker series. So Along for the Ride and Across State Lines. Those two FMCs, she's written, they're flawed, and she did it beautifully.
Yeah, cool. The last one on my list, because I'm sort of stuck in a loop here with Kate Stewart, but I find her FMCs to be really complex. There are parts within the books where the FMC will annoy me. However, this is a however, that's intentional. That's intentional because of the arc. I've read the Ravenhood series. I am currently reading One Last Rainy Day. I will read Severed Heart after that. But I also have read her Bittersweet Symphony duet.
You just finished that, didn't you?
Yeah. And the women, the FMCs in that series were massively complex. And essentially, that's a series that spans years. So you get to see these FMCs go from 19, 20-year-olds who have zero life experience all the way to when you get to the second book, they're in their 50s and 60s, the original characters. And so she evolves them really, really well.
So is that all you've got? You don't have any more?
That's it.
Wow. Okay. So then for me, my next one is Victoria. I think it's Evelyn. It's Alien Romance.
Oh,
Evelyn.
okay. I wouldn't
Um,
know.
no, you wouldn't. But her female characters in that series were phenomenal. We had headstrong ones, we had shy and quiet ones. Like she just ran the gamut really of like one end of the spectrum to the other, and they were written beautifully. My next one is JT Geisinger. So yeah,
JT Geisinger is on my to be read list.
you have to, for the love of God, would you read Pen Pal?
I know. You've been begging me to read that
I've been
for
begging
almost
you. I
2
would-
years now.
Oh my God. When you read that, we have to do an episode because that book, you are gonna you'll love it. I know for a fact that you'll probably pick up and go, I know what's gonna happen. Right. And I did too. But the way it was written was beautiful. Anyway, but her FMCs they're brilliant. They are just brilliant. My next one is Abigail Owens. So recently she wrote the Games Gods play.
Yes.
I've read a couple more of her books and her FMCs are fabulous as well. Again, they're strong, they're fighters, but they're also very smart, and I love that about them. Evelyn Gallus, I have read that woman. That woman's got so many books, it's not funny, and I've mentioned her so many times, but her FMCs are fabulous. They're smart, they're sassy, they're badass, they're quiet, they're reserved, like they're psycho. She just does them all. She's amazing. If you haven't picked up any of her books, go and have a look. And I can't believe you left this. Oh, you would have left her off because you've only read the one. But C.M. Owens?
Yeah, I've only read one book by her. So that's why the authors that I chose are authors that I've read multiple books from, and they were all done well.
Yeah. So I've read C.M. Owens. I've also read her other two, her pen names. So S.T. Abbey and Christy Cutting. She writes a fantastic FMC. She really did. And that is my list.
Okay.
All right. So now let's move on to who are some of your favorite FMCs?
So it's funny that you mentioned C.M. Owens because the first one on my list is Lana Myers. 1000%. Lana Myers. She is the epitome of feminine rage.
She's on my list, and yes, she's 100% the epitome of feminine rage, isn't she? She's just like, I'm coming at you.
But the way she's written, she is feminine rage, but she is calculated and patient. And it is so good. So good.
The payback she gets in that book, we won't spoil the ending, but just throughout those novellas or the big book, if you read the whole thing, you're right there with her. She's written her so fabulously. All right, well, my first one, and I can't believe this isn't your first one, is Katniss.
She's on my list, but she's down a bit because she's also I put Katniss, Everdeen / Lucy Gray because I thought they were both fabulously written.
They were both fabulously written. Katniss is my favorite over all of them.
I loved the way that Lucy Gray was written almost, this is going to sound terrible, but as a mirror to Snow, but where he was manipulative for evil or his own personal gain. She was manipulative for the survival of her people.
Yeah.
So I thought it was done really well. Okay, the next one on my list is Nesta Archeron.
Oh my God, so I added her this morning.
We be sharing minds.
I was like, this morning, I quite literally was getting out of the shower, I was drying my hair, and I was like, holy shit, how did I forget Nesta?
Nesta is the epitome of the hot, angry mess who eventually comes to terms with her new life.
So the thing I love about Nesta, now look, no one can deny the fact that she was a total bitch to her sister, right? We know this. However, I love Nesta for the fact that she is unapologetically who she is.
Authentic. And she didn't chant like in A Court of Silver Flames, even though her character arcs, her personality does not change.
That's right. And that's what I loved about her. And she called them on their shit. Like she was a hot mess. In Silver Flames, she was lost. That woman was completely lost, but she still managed to call them on their self-righteous bullshit.
Yes.
And I love that about her. And everyone gives her a lot of flack, you know. Oh, well, just because, you know, Nesta had one book, you can't forgive her for everything that she did throughout the whole entire series. I'm kind of like, what did she do exactly? Yes, she was the oldest and she didn't help her sister try and have them survive. But she was the only one that remembered when Pharaoh was taken. She was the only one that went looking for her. She went to find her sister.
Yeah.
She stood up for herself and others so many times throughout the whole series. Why? Because she was a bitch to her little sister.
I also think every eldest daughter can relate.
And I am an eldest daughter. But tell me, as an older sibling, you haven't been a bitch to your younger ones, or an asshole if you've got brothers. Like, tell me you didn't give your youngest sibling shit. Do you know what I mean? In Silver Flames, the way she just embraced her, well, I'm angry and fuck you all, I'm going to do what I want, I thought was fabulous. I love Nesta.
So who is your next one?
So my next one is Ileana. As I said, I just started TJ Maguire's series, but Ileana from Bradford Bride is she's the epitome of badass. So this is, it's not an arranged marriage, but it's a marriage of convenience. So the Italian mob and the Bratva decide that they're going to marry, well, the kids decide themselves that they're going to get married to form an alliance. And he is very dominant, but so is she. And to watch the pull between the two of them for who was going to control the relationship was fabulous. But she was an enforcer, but she was so I'm going to do this to prove to you that you don't need to baby me. I don't need your help. I need you to stand beside me as a team, but don't you dare stand in front of me like you think you can. And I was just like, yes. She beats the living shit out of her brother in a boxing ring. And yeah. So she was brought up in the Bratva, right? So her dad was pretty cut and dry. Anyway, in the scene, her dad walks up to him and he's like, you did something wrong, didn't you? And he was like, I don't know what I've done wrong. And he's like, well, watch because she's trying to show you. So she beats the ever-loving crap out of her brother, right? So they are going toe-to-toe. And it's a proper, I wouldn't say boxing, it's anything goes, right? So they're beating the living shit out of each other. He's stressing the whole time that she's going to get hurt, but she's absolutely holding her own. And in the end, her dad calls it off because she's about to break her brother's arm. And he's like, no, I need him. But they'd gotten so invested in the fight that she'd kind of moved on. Well, not moved on, but, the aggression that they had in the fight, they weren't going to stop until someone was unconscious. And her dad's like, you need to watch. She's trying to show you something. She's trying to explain something to you at the minute. Make sure you pay attention. And I was like, you're awesome.
She sounds badass.
She is. All right, what's your next one?
Okay, it's actually 3 in one go. So James, Juniper, Agnes, Amaranth, and Beatrice Belladonna from Once and Future Witches. Okay. So they're all 3 sisters. The story revolves around all 3 of them. The story takes place in 1893, so we're turn of the century here. James Juniper is fighting for women's rights. So she's in the suffragist movement. Her sister Agnes is pregnant and not married, and it's 1893.
Yeah, that's bad.
And then Beatrice is a librarian who is also a lesbian. So we have
bad
3
again.
but the way that these women move within this society is chef's kiss good, and it's magnificent. And they're all witches, and so that plays into it too. But yeah, I loved every one of them in that book.
I still haven't read that. I've been meaning to read it for you.
You need to read it.
I know. So my next one is Ada, and she is from King of Flesh and Bone by Liv Zander. Yeah, so it's kind of a Hades and Persephone retelling. You would actually like it. It's very dark though, but she's persistent. She's just like, no, I don't care. She's very much, there's a difference between right and wrong. And regardless of what you do to me, what you say, how angry you get, you're still wrong.
Mm.
And the way she held on to her convictions throughout all the crap that he puts her through, she was amazing.
On that note, you'll disagree with my next one.
Will I?
Maybe. So I have Aurora Whiteshaw. Okay, so I have her on this list because one, the way that she gives it back to him every time he tries to dominate her is
you want to tell everyone
freaking hilarious.
What book you're talking about?
Yeah, so this is from Fierce Obsession by S. Massery. It's from the Hockey God series. So basically, Aurora is married to Knox and he won't give her a divorce, even though she's with his teammate.
Look,
Hold on, let me finish. So
yeah, go on.
Even though you did not like one aspect of the book, I thought that her strength and conviction about holding on to marital vows that she spoke, that takes a lot of strength.
It does. And I had no issue with that.
And the fact that she has a medical condition. Yeah, she wins.
If we remove him as an FMC, I thought she was quite good. I would have preferred, this is just a personal preference. Yes, she was, I think, staying true to your marriage vows, especially when your husband did not. That takes strength of conviction, and good on her. I really would have liked her to torment him more. He deserved so much worse than what she gave him.
I thought she did it quite well.
Nah, not hard enough.
Well, you're also like...
Not hard enough. You hate him.
You also want like books where people's entrails are dissected whilst sexual activity is happening. So I
never said... Wait a minute. No. I never said I liked that. There was no new kink unlocked, trust me. But the book...
if that kink ever got unlocked, I would be telling your husband to run. I'd be like, bro, grab your stuff and leave now, quickly.
No, I liked those books because the writing was just next level. That's why I liked those books. Did I read those scenes and go, hot? Yes.
Oh, thank God.
Did I read those scenes and go like, how do you where does your brain go to get stuff like that? Yes, I did. But was it brilliantly written where I was like, can I move past the fact that he's using someone's head as a blow-up doll? Yeah, I can.
Okay, moving on.
Anyway, but I still think she could have made him work harder for it. But that's just me. So my next one is, and I'm sure this FMC is going to be on your list, but it is Sloane, Sutherland.
Yeah, she's not next. She wasn't next. She was one after the next one, yeah.
Yeah, so I have Sloane. I love Sloane. I think, again, she is a strong FMC, but at the same time is quite flawed and is still dealing with her own demons and her own insecurities. And I think that Brynn just wrote her amazingly. So I love Sloane.
Yes, out of the Ruinous Love trilogy and the 3 FMCs, I would say Sloane is the strongest.
Yeah.
My next one is Violet Sorrengail.
I do love Violet. She's not on my list, but I do love Violet.
Violet made my list for the simple fact that her chronic illness, the way that it's represented, made me feel absolutely seen. Because you get people in your life who want to tell you what you can and can't do, what you can and can't eat or drink, what you can and can't any given day of the week. And Violet wasn't having it. And then the way that she works through that and persists anyway, that was like, yes, girl, superpower.
I will give credit where credit is due to Rebecca Yarros for Violet, just because it's in a fantasy novel and we got an FMC who, as you said, has a chronic illness, and it's an illness that she has to deal with daily. So as in her joints can just pop like walking, basically, for Violet. But I loved the fact with Violet that she didn't have her be, well, she kind of is a chosen one, but not a chosen one who was 5'0", really thin, has a chronic illness. Oh, now she's got magical powers and she's amazing.
Yeah, her chronic illness didn't disappear just because she's magical.
Yeah, it was refreshing to see an FMC who was like, oh shit, I've got to go up against Jack fucking Barlow. I need to find a way around this because he's going to annihilate me. It didn't matter that her older sister and her older brother were both dragon riders. It didn't matter who her mum was. She was still frail, and she managed to use her knowledge and her know-how to overcome that. And we didn't just get this, oh, now she's got some, magical power from some well out of somewhere, and now she doesn't need to worry about her physical illness. She still had to deal with that throughout the book, and I thought that was brilliantly written.
Okay, who's the next on your list?
My next one is actually Allie from Lights Out.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I really liked her character, right? Because she reminded me a lot of me. No, you know how she scrolls through, like she doesn't interact on like TikTok or anything like that. She just scrolls the thirst traps. Do you know how long I've been stuck sometimes scrolling those?
Doom scrolling.
Yeah. And I also loved the fact that she also was processing her own trauma from when she was little. But then she's got this wit that just came out of nowhere. And I was like, that's amazing. I really enjoyed her character.
I agree. I thought that she was a really good FMC as well.
Yeah.
My next one is another Allie. But this is Allie Hayes from The Score, which is part of the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy. What I love about Allie is, so basically the MMC is a playboy who is known for his infamous one-night stands. And she rocks his world one night, and then that's it. She's like, nope, we're not anything. I have no intention of being anything with you. I want to go about my life. And he is obsessed with her. Like he can't, it gets to the point where he's at parties trying to pick up chicks and he can't get it up because it's not her. So the fact that she sticks to her guns for most of the book until he proves himself, I thought was really well done.
Nice. So my next one is Alyssa from Dante, which is by Sadie Kincaid. Yeah, so this is another dark romance mafia book. He is a douche. This is another one that's the quiet resilience in them is just phenomenal. The strength that she uses to get through everything that he puts her through in the book and everything that her backstory was. So she's been SA'd and and everything that she uses to get through that and the way she conducts herself was just amazing. She'd be one of the strongest, resilient, quiet FMCs that I've read that I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm more of a badass person and I read her and I was like, damn, you are something else.
It sounds good.
It was.
All right. My next one, since that was a dark romance.
That was a dark romance, yeah.
Yeah. So I'll do my dark romance. So my next pick is Dr. London Noble from the Darkly Madly duet. Okay. So it is a duet of books. The first one is Born Darkly. The second is Born Madly.
Yep.
He is on death row. She is his psychologist and she ends up falling for him, and it ends up becoming basically her trying to figure out why she believes what she believes and untangle her beliefs as to what is right, wrong, psychotic, etc. And it was brilliantly done to where by the end, you can't figure out who's worse. Him or her.
Yeah, I haven't finished that duet, but she is a very strong FMC.
You need to finish it.
I haven't finished it yet, no.
The end of it's the best part.
I haven't finished it yet. I will get there, I promise.
The end of it is the best part.
So my next one might actually surprise you, and that is Sivon from Soul Match.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you think about it, right? So Soul Match is actually coming out this month. We read it as an arc. And now the book did take a little bit for me to get into it. But once I was in, Aurora was correct. It was very fast paced. And her overall character, if you get my drift, her overall character, I was like, damn, that's some strength.
Yeah.
And I don't want to spoil it because I can't explain it without spoiling.
Well, we are going to do an entire podcast on Soul Match as a celebration of the book coming out.
Yes, the debut.
Yeah, the debut
comes out later
of the
this
book.
month.
So we are going to do a full episode on it where we'll talk about the premise of the book, the particulars of the book, and then we'll have a spoilery portion. So stay tuned for that. But for now, we're hush hush because the book isn't even out yet.
The book isn't even out yet. But as a strong FMC, right? And if you think about her character, the character development, and then I'm going to call it the backstory of that character. Yeah, you get me?
Yeah, I got you.
I was like, damn, that's some
trauma.
That's some trauma, but that's some strength, that's some courage, that's some perseverance, and like epic perseverance to reach your end goal, to reach end game of what you wanted to achieve. Like that took you a very long time.
Yes, a very long time.
A very long time.
But I have her there. That is persistence.
Yes. And tenacity.
Yeah, for sure.
What we love.
Last but not least on my list, I've got Willa Grant from Powerless, which is part of the Chestnut Spring series by Elsie Silver. Okay, the reason that I love Willa is because Willa is actually introduced very early on in the series as the best friend of the FMC in book 1.
Yep.
She's this wild card. She's this fiery redhead. She says it like it is. She's a party girl. She never wants to be tied down, all these things. And then even in her book, where it's a single dad, she becomes the nanny while she's in respite. Like she needs a break from her life. So she goes and nannies for the MMC. But what I loved about the book is even though her character arcs and there is a love story there, she is still that free-spirited girl that appeared in book 1, if that makes sense.
That does make sense.
Like she teaches the MMC how to not be so type A throughout the book.
That's the older brother, isn't it?
Yes, it's
Cade. I only read the first one.
Oh, well, you should really read Willa's book because Cade is very type A. Everything in its place. Everything has a place. Everything should be exactly where it should be. There's a routine. There is a schedule. There is this, that, and the other. And he's very, very rigid until Willa tornadoes into his life. And then he doesn't really get a choice because he falls in love with her, of course, but she tempers his anal personality.
Fair. Okay.
Okay, who else do you have?
Well, I have 3 more.
Okay, go for it.
So I have Val, and she is from, these two you might be like, oh, I don't know about this. But I have Val, and she's from Dom by ASJ Tilly. So the Alliance series.
Oh, yeah.
I liked Val just because of the fact that she was, again, a different FMC. So she was strong in her own right. She stood up for herself when it came to Dom, but she didn't stand up to herself with her brother and sister. But the trauma that she's gone through and the reason why she doesn't want to stand up to them and tell them how she's feeling is completely understandable. And as someone who has gone through a blended family and can know that sometimes it's really hard to communicate in a blended family, and you just, having been from a family that wasn't that unit, that family unit that everyone longs for, when that's kind of pulled out from underneath you and you've got to deal with that, and then you realize that you've got to deal with the blended family, and sometimes it's just better to keep the peace. That really got to me. I really understood where she was coming from. And I just loved the fact that she was still, while being strong, again, I have more silent types than I thought I would, to be honest. But the fact that, she was still, so she's part of this mafia family now, but she's still like, no, that's not how we're going to do that. Sorry. So I did like Val. I then have Savannah from King, which is also the Alliance series. So she's the one that he literally holds down and gets Nero to marry them on the couch.
I remember that.
Yeah, and she basically gets up and bites his head off like, you fucking prick, how dare you? She is such a strong FMC because she's like, no, I'm not putting up with this shit. I don't care who you think you are or what kind of underworld gang you think you run. You can shove that right up your ass. And I'm like,
Mm.
yes, you tell him, girly. I really, really liked her. So she was fantastic. And my last one is another Sloane. Yeah, and she is from Carnal Urges, and that's JT Geisinger's second book in her, I want to say, Queens and Monsters series. But so, yeah, this is the second book in the series. You would love Sloane.
I'm sure.
You would. She is hilarious. So she is more of your carefree kind of not out, well, I don't want to say out there or hippie or witchy or anything like that, but she's kind of like, she's just very carefree. She's just like, let's just let the chips fall where they lie. All right. There's no need to get stressed. And he, again, is like a type A personality. He's high strung.
Mm.
So he kidnaps her and she's the best friend of the FMC in the first book. And he's like, right, well, if you want her back, this is what you're going to have to do. And meanwhile, she's like, oh, well, you know what? I've been kidnapped. I'm going to try and escape, you know, and to the point where she's making friends with all of his, you know, his minions, right? They're all sitting down playing a game of poker or something, and he walks in like, what the are you all doing? And they're like, oh, shit, sorry, boss. And she's like, what's wrong? Why are you mad? And you could just, if they were a real couple, if this is a TV show or a cartoon, you know how they turn red?
Yeah.
You can plainly see that that would be what he would be doing. And then steam would come out his ears because he's like, ugh! And to the point where he locks her in a bedroom and he's like, none of you are to go near her. I've had enough of her shit. Yeah, he's done. But she somehow manages to get out. He finds her in the kitchen and he's just like, what? And she's like, I was hungry. So I really loved her because, yes, she was the complete opposite to him. She showed him that it's okay to not need everything so regimented. The banter between them was fabulous. So I loved her.
Awesome. I think.
Well, I'm also just going to mention, because I forgot two authors in the authors that write great FMCs, and that is T.L. Smith and Kaya Carrington-Russell. I've mentioned them a few times, but they run also the spectrum of FMCs from strong to quiet and resilient. So they're another one that I forgot to mention.
Yeah, I had one more author as well that I thought of while we were doing this that I'll mention, and that's Brittany Nicole.
Yes.
I've read her. So I read Irish. I've read her Billionaire series. I think book one is, I can't remember the names of all the books, but there's one called Loving Whiskey. But
oh, yeah, I know the ones.
Yeah. So I've read several of her books, and her FMCs are always resilient, strong, headstrong, and usually part of the problem. Like,
I actually think I've read
like the MMC has a problem he needs to solve, and oh shit, she's actually involved.
Yeah. Yeah, I read her Mother Faker.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and that was, she writes a very good older FMC.
Yeah, I think in Irish they're late 20s, early 30s. And
Here you go.
Oh, and I was going to say, and I know in the Billionaire series, they're in their 30s.
So in Mother Faker, I think she's mid to late 30s even. So she's got young kids, not young. I think they're like 9 and something. And she's been married and she's getting a divorce. And she writes quite well older characters, which is hard to do, I think.
And hard to find.
Yes, and very hard to find.
Well, it's that time again.
Yes, we're here again. All right, we love powerful women, so today's drink is all about them. It is called the Lizzie Bennet. So one of my favourite characters. Shut up. You know I love Elizabeth Bennet. And it is brought to you by society19.com, and here's what you'll need. So you're going to need 1 part gin, 2 parts cold Earl Grey tea, and a dash of lavender syrup. What you're going to do is you're going to mix ingredients into a shaker with ice and then strain into a martini glass and garnish with a lavender sprig.
That sounds like Irish coffee, but tea.
But the British version?
But the British version with gin and tea.
Well, that's why I thought it was kind of cool. And you know that I love Elizabeth Bennet, right? So, you know, Jane Austen and Elizabeth Bennet. I should have had her as one.
You did.
have-
You said Jane Austen.
Yeah, I said Jane Austen, but why did I not have Elizabeth Bennet on my most
I don't know,
loved?
darling. Was that British enough?
Oh, that's close. You did all right. Anyway, let's add Elizabeth Bennet to the list of who's my favorites.
Okay. She's completely and thoroughly added. Stamp approved. All right. Huge thank you to all the bibliomaniacs out there listening. Please stop by our Instagram page, The Plot with a Twist, and check out the link tree in our bio, where you can find links to us across the internet, including all of our social media, most recently our video episodes on YouTube, website, shop, and Facebook group. Give us a like or a follow so that you can stay up to date with episode releases and product launches from our book merch shop. We appreciate your support from the bottom of our hearts. Every little bit counts. Tune in next week for another all-new bookish episode full of magic, mayhem, and maybe just a little bit of smut. Until then, keep reading.